Ladies and gentlemen, I am so honored and pleased to have this engineer, musician, producer. He really just encompasses all the things around a musical background. And I wanted you to talk to somebody that really understood the inside of the business. What can happen, both good and bad, when you're working with somebody in production. And so, Keith Coston of Keef Keyz Productions, welcome to the God and Gigs Show. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here. And I'm excited about this conversation.
I'm looking forward to it too because as I was just talking to you before we turned the cameras on, I've got to check out some of your YouTubes. Number one, fantastic production. Please follow him on YouTube right away because it is not easy to make these YouTube channels. I saw you pop up on the list of channels that were coming up, and trust me, YouTube is feast or famine when it comes. So I love what you do there. So tell everybody that's just meeting you for the first time a little bit about what you do, your business, and your background, and kind of like a 30-second elevator speech, and then we'll jump right into some topics.
Okay, cool. So my name is Keith, also known as Keef Keyz. I am the founder of Keef Keyz Productions, which is a broad-based music servicing company where we kind of strap you in with instrumentals, mixing, mastering, kind of all of those things, audio and production. I am the engineer and producer that artists, singers, and rappers come to help sound professional. So that's what I do. I'm a church boy. I'm a musician by heart. I love the Lord and I love my family. So that's me in a nutshell.
Hey, I love that. You can't go wrong with those right there, man. And not nail it down with being in church, God, family, right? God, church, family, like God. I'm sorry, God, family, church. You gotta get it right order, right?
Yeah.
And then business. Yeah, don't mess around that thing. Put church before family. You can mess up quick. Been there, done that. Bought the T-shirt. Well, tell me
Yeah.
where are you based out of, and just tell me a little bit about your musical background. Like, how did you get into the business in the first place?
So cool. So I am based right outside of Philadelphia. My family's from Philadelphia. So I live right outside of Philadelphia.
Quick note that no one knows about me, not that they care. I was born in the area of Philadelphia. My dad was going to dental school at UPenn.
Oh
And so,
wow.
yeah, but didn't spend long there. So I can't talk about winters. I
You
can't talk
can't talk
about
about nothing.
Philly. I can't talk
Okay.
about hoagies. I can't talk about anything. I was gone before I got a chance to experience Philly soul. None of that, man. But yeah, I do have like a little connection to Philly there.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So I'm from the Philadelphia area. I've been a musician since I was 4. I was playing the drums. By the age of 13, my mom forced me to play the keyboard. So that kind of like, pushed me in that direction. And ever since then, it's just been in love with music. By the time I was in high school, I had my whole senior class making songs and making tracks. And then my first year of college, I kind of was the go-to guy on campus at Lincoln University that had everybody in my dorm room making songs. And that just turned from one thing to another. So now it's about 15 years later, I'm still here. I'm still doing it all. I still play, not the drums so much anymore. If you don't use it, what
You
I'm saying,
lose
you
it,
lose
yeah.
it in a sense. I mean, but other than that, that's kind of what I do every day. I'm in the studio all the time. I'm in my studio right now. I work with a lot of artists from beginning to end, kind of from the production stage, crafting ideas, writing some ideas, getting the music down, recording them, and everything else in between. I work with a lot of amazing people, a lot of amazing musicians. Yeah, so that's basically what I do. I enjoy what I do. I enjoy just where I'm at now. Yeah. So that's just a little bit. I mean, I could go in depth and everything, but
Yeah, no, we want to
you
get
know,
in depth a little bit. I wanted to go back. I wanted to go back to when you talk about like those dorm rooms and kind of like the beginnings of because what I feel even this podcast does a lot. What we seem to kind of take past to is like we really don't oftentimes because we're musicians and creatives. We're so busy doing. we
Mhm.
don't really realize how we do what we do. Like
Right,
we
right.
just keep doing it and we don't think about like, wait, how did I even get to this point where I'm confident? And then other people look at us and then we look at them and like, well, I can't even tell you. Like I just got here, right? So it's
Mhm.
like unraveling. Like how did that actually happen? So one of the things I would love to ask you is like what was that first moment that maybe you got into like playing in church, right? But let's talk about the studio. Like what was your actual moment that like you stepped into the studio for the first time and you saw somebody, maybe it was all the lights, or maybe it was like the first time that you brought something home as a mixer board. Like what was that moment of like the learning curve to say, whoa, this is what I have to learn to be able to like operate in this
Well,
area.
I definitely say this: two things that equal a lot of success in life in general, but for me specifically, has been ignorance of not knowing what I was doing, and passion to just do it. So, like growing up, being a musician, and at one point, my brother and I we wanted to be rappers. So then we started to, okay, well, how are we gonna make a song? So then that leads to production, and then it's kind of like, well, how do we record ourselves?
Right.
That kind of leans into engineering. So I remember back in the day starting off, we used to go to my grandparents' house and I found out that you could turn a pair of headphones into a microphone. So I ended up plugging the headphones into the microphone jack, and it was just like a little recorder on this old computer. I mean, it was old, and we used to hit record and just go at it. So one thing leads to another over time. But the fact that we passionately wanted to make music and we were going to find a way to do it one way or another. So by the time I got to college and I had everybody in my dorm room, that kind of was the point to where I'm like, yo, I know what I'm doing. So it's like you might as well come to my dorm room if you want your song really done right. Because there were some other cats, if other cats there on campus that had little setups and stuff like that. But you know, um, I prided myself in learning, the programs that I was using, just my workflow. I pride myself in knowing exactly what I was doing with that. So I actually got a lot of people to come over and just make songs like that. But honestly, it wasn't like a big studio or like inspiration from somebody else.
Got
Actually,
it.
looking back, it more so was like, hey, I really want to make music, and I have to find a way to really make it. And so that led to that. It's not until like years later to where I really was, cognizant of what I actually was doing in the past and what I can be doing now, and what inspires me, and like my studio and things like that to actually be what it is now. But growing up, definitely was just the ignorance of knowing not really what to do, but
Yeah.
finding a way to get it done. And it's the fact that, my brother and I, we weren't going to let anyone tell us that we could not do it. So, you know, one thing just led to another. And then when in college, it was just like, I was just the guy who was hitting record for everybody. So
I love that. And hey, that's that persistence piece, right? The
yeah,
persistence. There's a million different quotes that come to mind, right? But that's really what it's about. Like the fact that you would not be denied, and that the money, because I know that's a big thing for a lot of beginning creators, beginning producers, like equipment, having to have the biggest thing, or connections, right? So if I'm not connected to this person or that person, I can't get started because they have this and they know that person or whatever, and they let excuses stop them from taking those steps that you just talked about. And that's why I wanted you to say the story, like, hey, it wasn't that you needed X, Y, Z to get started. You just start. And then God kind of lays that says, what's in your hand? God says, what's in your hand? You use what's in your hand, and all of a sudden now you get the things because you're faithful with a little bit, and then He blesses you with much. Right? That whole principle
yeah.
works out. But
So
yeah,
one of the biggest things that I really find now is that when we talk about the word successful, success only happens in conjunction with you actually having some way, shape, or form of interaction or influence with somebody else.
true.
So, for example, you can make the best music in the world, but if nobody were to ever listen to it, then how would you know it's the best? And how would it be the best in the world if the world doesn't even know about it? So, at some point in time, you have to consider others. So, for me, for me, the biggest thing I found out early on was because my end goal was like when I was starting off, like, hey, I want to make the music I want to make, and I actually don't want to work for anybody. I don't want to work with just everybody. I want to work with the people who I want to work with if I want to work with them.
Got it.
But I understood that success comes from not what you can do for yourself, but actually what you do for others. You know, it's a servant mentality. It's more so if people have a need and you have a solution to that problem. That's when you success is actually found. So early on, that's when I was like, you know what, everybody wants to record. Okay, I'm gonna help them out. I'm gonna hit the button and we're gonna see what we're gonna do. But from then, one thing led to another, and that teaches you how to actually work with people. Because if success is going to be at some point with the interaction of somebody else, you need to understand early on in whatever industry or whatever you're doing, how people operate, how people act, the wants of people in that industry, the cares, the concerns, the pains of people in the industry. And once you figure that out, and the earlier you figure that out, the more successful you can and will be, because you understand people and you understand kind of how to interact with them in the lane that you're in. You know?
That's so good, man. And it brought up a quote in my head from a book that talks about how success, you just mentioned it, success is really about all of us. Like you cannot be successful in a bubble. Like
Mm,
achievement, talent, all that kind of stuff is great, but true success always comes in community. And it
mm,
always comes when what you just said, which I would love to jump into, is how do you see the needs and help people, other people succeed, right? And then as your place in a studio, as a producer, as an engineer, you're constantly working with other people. Like you're not, like you said, you're not in a bubble. You're not there creating music for yourself. You might be, but like your ultimate goal is to make other people sound good, and
right.
then have other people like look at you and say, "Hey, I have a vision or I have a sound. Can you make this happen?" And that's a lot that has nothing to do with music. Tell me about how you have to work with the interpersonal, psychological communication. Like there is so much that you do inside that studio that has nothing to do with your musical or even your technical skill. So talk a little bit about that.
Man, this is
I,
story of
I
my
knew
life
it.
right here.
I knew it. I felt like there was
It's
something
the
bubbling
main
under the
point.
surface.
Um, this is and and the way you worded it was correct, because you can be dope, you know. Like I grew up playing the keyboard in church, watching all the crazy musicians play. There's one musician around my way growing up that is amazing, but he has no people skills.
Ooh.
So, but I mean, he is, if you heard him play, you know, if I dropped his name, people probably already know what I'm talking. But if you heard his name, he's amazing. But because he doesn't have any people skills, he doesn't get the phone calls that you think he should get, you know, for that very reason. It's the hardest thing as a creative in any industry. And I talked about this recently on the most recent video I put up, was that it's hard for us to be the service providers to creatives, to take something that exists in your head that's really not manifested, and we have to manifest what's in your head. You know, it's like it's not even in my head, it's your idea. You have, so the first thing I can say is, number one, you got to have patience. If you don't have patience, you might as well stop, because it's a
Get another
service,
career.
it's a service based industry.
This is
If
not
you're
the
in a
career for you if you were like, yeah, I hear
yeah,
you, man.
it's a service. There's a couple of key things. I mean, there's so many variables, but there are a couple of key things that I stick by. Number one is always be patient. It's not your idea, it's not your song. That's number two. So it's basically what they want at the end of the day. But you have to develop some communication skills. You have to at least know to ask certain questions. Hey, what really do you want? What type of emotions are you trying to invoke? Do you have any examples, any references that I can reference? If I never worked on this type of song before, you know, if I never worked on a jazz record before, and like I'm used to doing hip hop, you know, please give me an example what you want, or else your song is going to come out sounding like a trap. You know, it's the you have to ask certain questions, um that would help people because they don't know. And if it's an idea that somebody has, think of an idea you have. You have an idea, but you really don't know what that idea is. You don't know how that's going to come into fruition. So imagine trying to get an idea out of somebody else and they're not even sure about it. So it's more so it's almost like being a therapist, like a creative therapist in a sense. Like
Wow.
let's get you to the point that we can come up with some type of foundation to where we can move forward on the idea that you have. So for me, that comes in a lot of different ways. Please send me an example of what you want, or just what type of music do you listen to? Who's your favorite artist? Things like that. So I can listen to that stuff. So we have some type of foundation. Then create drafts and create ideas for the person, like 3 or 4 or 5 different ideas. But don't spend too much time on them, but just, hey, something like this or something like this or something like this. Okay, that one, cool. So do you like something like this? And you just keep collaborating and building. But you have to have patience. You have to know to ask the right questions, or questions that will at least guide them to the idea that they have in their head. And yeah, you have to be a servant. And coming from church, that sounds so cliche-ish,
No, it's not at all. It's so like you're
but
saying it right now that the thing I say about cliches is that there's a reason it's a cliche. It's a reason
it's
that
a
it's because it's
right.
so true that we say it all the
Yeah,
time
it's
because
but
it's
it's a,
true.
it's amazing though. But even in that, even which I'm not gonna say it, but with a lot of faith believers, if you were to actually believe and understand that stuff, you'd be a lot better off, because knowing that I am a servant, and not just in a spiritual aspect or anything like that, knowing I'm a servant to people in the business I have and in the industry that I'm in, there's a reason to why people want to work with me, or I will, or are inquiring about me in some shape or form, is because people will never forget how you make them feel. So it doesn't matter about your resume. um you can work with the dopest person in the world, but if you treated somebody like trash when they worked with you, like, that's it. You know what I'm saying? So it's like being a servant, knowing it's not your music, it's their music. If you say lightning and we say thunder and I say thunder, lightning's in the song. That's it. You know what I mean? It's not an argument here. You know, but it's like knowing you're in a service based industry, knowing you're there to help somebody, that takes you a very long way. I forgot what the question was, but
No,
God
I
knows
know.
I
Please,
hope
I
I
was
answered it.
not about to stop you. This is gold, sir. This is gold,
Uh,
Keith. Because again, I want to park there because here's the thing I was going to mention that even as you talked about that heart of service, I was going to ask you really kind of like to give because I think what the reason we say it's cliche is because we forget how that actually operates in the natural. Okay, let's just be spiritual
mhm,
for now, right? So we talk
right.
about like, the last shall be first, the first shall be last. God says, if you really want to be great, be a servant, right?
Mhm.
So we know those as Christians, that's our heart. Now you just said it a little earlier. If people really understood that, their businesses would be better, their creative lives would be better. So let me
Absolutely.
ask you to kind of like do this then. Let's kind of like do this to really paint the picture for somebody who still thinks it's about the gear or it's about the dope beats or it's about,
Yeah.
I know this person who still thinks that. Can you think of an example where that service mentality, where the fact that you put somebody first and you kind of saw like this is how this principle helped me get X or Y. I know you might have to think a little bit about this, but I just want to like really paint the picture for somebody. Like when
Yeah.
you operate in this mentality, this is what can happen.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me think. I got a couple like little examples right off the top of my head, but I want to really think. So okay, yeah. So okay, cool. So I have a couple. So I have one little one, and then I got another one.
Cool.
So one of them was, I remember this artist had hit me up, who's a local artist, and I need this. Long story short, just had a bad experience with another production team, but she needed something done by the end of the day. And it was kind of like a rush type thing. Hit me up, and I was like, you know what? Come on, let's do it. I got you, no problem. But it was like one of the biggest headaches I ever had in the world. I mean, it was rough. but because I was patient, I didn't act out. I just treated her as if I treated her as if she was the biggest client, my biggest client in the world. But God knows, like afterwards, I'm talking to my wife, well, she was my girlfriend at the time, talking to her like, yo, this lady right here, she got me hot. Like I was heated. Um, Long story short, though, she became one of the biggest supporters that I ever had. She actually came to my wedding, which was
Wow.
2 hours out the way, and she was just like, "No, I want to support you." So that was just dope. That was just a principle. Is like, you don't know who you're entertaining, you don't know who you're actually working with, so treat everybody the same. The other one was there's a gentleman, he goes by the name of Busy Works Beats. He's one of the online leaders for, especially with a program called FL Studio. So those who don't know, it's a program, a digital audio workstation that allows you to make music. He's kind of one of the forerunners for that program in particular as a producer online. Come to find out, he lives 10 minutes from me. So
Okay.
I really wanted to connect with him, and I just really wanted to serve. Like, yo, how can I help you? And yeah, like, I love what you're doing. Like, you've impacted me, you've impacted the way how I work, you've impacted so many people. I just want to be a blessing and all of that. One thing just led to another, built this amazing relationship, and now I have I couldn't have been able to walk through the doors that I've been able to walk through, if it wasn't for him, and so it's just amazing what happens when you might think it's all the gear, you might think it's what you bring, especially when you're around other people who are like-minded as you. It's I mean, even growing up being a musician, everybody's a musician in the room, everybody's about to shed or something like that, and you think it's about the chops, you think it's about kind of like what all of the stuff that you think is what other people are looking at. It might just be the fact that you shook everybody's hand when you walked in. It might just it's never the thing you really think it is. And that's one of the biggest things I can say. I got gear. I love gear. I gear shop more than anything in life. I feel like it's becoming an idol. I need to take that to the Lord.
Oh no.
I take that to the Lord. But
Oh boy, you like got the
but
golden cap, you got the golden compressor,
yeah, I
you
got
got
the
a
gold.
mic up there, you got everybody's like bowing down to him.
That's right. I just brought a brand new mic, but I'm like, oh Jesus, did you see the new one that just came out? I like so it's
But
like, it's getting bad. But it's like you think, like even in the studio, like you would think it's the gear and stuff like that. Some people are impressed by that stuff. I don't buy, gear to impress people, but some people are impressed by it. But um people are impressed with how they're treated and what you do with the expectation that they have of you. So when people come with me, I remember there was a gentleman, first time me working with him recently, and he came in and he just was like, well, I thought we were going to do this, and I thought you had this, that, and the third. And I'm just like, he just came in just with this mindset. It's just like this prejudgment mindset. I'm just like, bro, you cool? Like, I'm saying, it's the weekend. You know what I mean? It's all right. You know what I'm
like
saying? We
we're
chill.
like why
Like
so
we
much stress? Why so
bro, like,
stressed?
bro, relax. You know what I'm saying? And he was like all tense beforehand. Like, I was just like, ain't the first time I've been through this, but so but by the end of it, man, oh my God, man, I can't believe, and it's not to toot my horn or anything, but it's to say that people people will always have a judgment of kind of what you have or what they think you bring to the table or what they think you do. It's
Right.
about how you treat them and what you do with the expectation of them. It's all right, cool. Listen, I don't care what you think. I don't care what you think. But when you play your song when it's done, I know you call me back. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
it's more so like that's where I hang my hat. I care less about anything that I have and stuff like that. Like, it looks great for an Instagram photo or a YouTube video, you know what I mean? But everything's functional for a reason, and it's not necessarily to kind of appease people. So
I
whatever.
love it,
I don't
man.
even know the question again.
No, again, no, this is a conversation. No, do not let my limited questions limit your what you're sharing, man. Absolutely not. What this is so good because again, I love, and I can be very transparent here, just like you're doing. I often had that kind of comparison syndrome of, well, I haven't done X and I don't have this gear and I've been using the same microphone, the same keyboard since 2005. Like I'm not updating nothing until that sound is like not available or not working for me. Like if it's working,
Yeah,
like look, we'll stick with Yamaha motif. I don't care what anybody else says. You know what I mean?
that's
Like
right.
I'm good. Like this works for me, and I start to look around at other people, be like, well, they judging me based on the fact that I haven't bought the latest because I'm not, because maybe they think I'm not really taking this seriously. But then, like you said, when I am called for things, I think people know what they're getting and they know that I'm going to bring my best to that in terms of my musicianship and I'm going to treat them right. And number three, I was going to point is that I think your identity, because you talk about how you have to see what the other person wants.
Mhm.
So you have to really be secure in what you are and who you are
Yeah,
before you kind of can put other people first.
yeah,
You got to be really confident and
yeah,
not
for
let
sure.
those ego things where people do kind of judge you, say, oh, well, this guy did this better, this guy did. And I think creators, again, kind of talking to all of us creators, you can't get so stuck on trying to prove yourself, I guess is maybe that, and it's not even a question, I'm more like a statement. Like
Right.
trying to prove ourselves to other people can get us in a lot of trouble because we are kind of buying stuff and trying to like keep up with the Joneses instead of just being secure in who we are and like what you offer even as a
Yeah,
business
and
person and
the, the
musician.
the reality of it is you are really good at whatever you are really good at.
Mm,
Period. That's what you are really good at. The thing is, when you start trying to do things for others, you start to do things that you're not really good at, or you try everything that will appease them to what they want instead of being really good at what you're really good at.
true to yourself. Yeah.
So I am a keyboard player. I play piano. I'm a drummer. So it's like when somebody has an idea, the very first thing I'm doing is pulling up a piano patch or a Rhodes patch. So, oh, you want some? It might sometimes be the first thing I lay down, or this, that, and the third. When we're about to make a pop record. So it's like instead of electric piano, like yeah, like, but sometimes that's just me just getting the idea out verbatim because I can speak that language. I know
Yeah.
exactly. Okay, here. Okay, cool. Let's replace all of these chords now with synths. Let's replace all of let's put an arpeggiator here. Let's it's but it's like, but if but somebody who the artist was with me and they're expecting a pop record, they might say like, yo, what is that? I don't want that sound. Say, okay, cool, no problem. You won't have that sound. But but this is kind of the process of me getting my idea out of my head. So for anybody, no matter what you are good at, like my brother, he's a musician as well, but he thinks totally different, left field. If I send him an idea, he's gonna send me back, a lot of like 808s and programs, like it's amazing stuff. But we may just be making a gospel record, but it's like but by the end of it you're like, oh, okay.
That's where
It's
you
like
were going.
you have to trust people. It's hard to trust people. Number one, it's hard to trust people, right?
Amen.
But you have to develop some sort of relationship and reliability to where that they're going to at the end of the day give you what you want or close to it, because nobody's perfect. But if they at least you understood what I was trying to do and you're just not doing whatever you thought I wanted, but you really tried to give me what I wanted, then that's something I can work with. People, but then that brings me to another point, is that you have to, no matter who you're working with, no matter what you're working on, you have to over communicate. And I say this all the time.
Yeah.
It's may not be your fault, per se, that you may not know exactly what you want or what's going on, but it is your responsibility. So with that being said, you have to find ways to over communicate really what you want. Um, the Bible says, write the vision and make
Make
it
it plain,
plain,
plain. Yeah.
so that they that read, they can run, they can actually take what you've
That's a
written
great application. I never,
verbatim,
oh, that's beautiful. And I've
and
never
they
heard that
can
applied that way. That
and
is,
they can
you better
actually,
preach.
and they sorry, I'm trying not to,
No, this
but
is
they
great.
they can take exactly what you said and go with it, so it's like, I'm not built off a lot of flashy things. I'm really built off a lot of principles, and that's one of them. If you can verbatim tell me what exactly you want, I can, in my power, give you exactly what I think you really wanted, and that's the biggest thing. You have to over communicate what you want from people. You can't put an expectation before you put communication. So you have to try your very hardest to give those requests out to people, and really try. You may not know what you want. You may not know what you want, but it's your responsibility to give me direction. Don't just tell me, oh, make me just make me, just make me a Todd Delaney song. Make like, huh? What is that? You know what I'm saying? No,
Exactly.
tell me what you want.
It's what's
What
in your head. But I got to
what
run
do
it
you
back.
want?
I got to run you back because I know someone's going to rewind this podcast. You said, I want to make sure I got it right.
Yeah,
Don't put expectation
right.
before communication. I don't know if you caught that, but that was bars. Okay. That was bars. And I'm going to rewind. Please rewind to that section, you guys, because I want to make sure I said
Yeah.
it right. But that right there is a nutshell. When there is expectation before communication and you never dial that back and put the
Yeah.
communication
Yeah.
before the expectation,
I,
you're like, oh, that was so
I
good.
always said if I go back to school, I want to go back to school for psychology, because I'm really intrigued to why people do whatever the heck they do for whatever reason they chose to do it. And I'm like, what really, like, somebody snaps out at you. Like, my wife sometimes would be looking at me
Okay.
cracking up, because I would be like, somebody snaps, and I'd be like, huh. Like, everybody be mad. I'd be like, but I wonder why they did that. Like, well, who told them that was, like, what happened that made them just say, like, oh, it's okay to act like this? Because it's not okay. But I want to know why, and then that helps me actually, hey, yo, listen, I got it. You felt a certain type of way. XYZ may have happened to you in the past. Don't worry about that. Like, we're not, this isn't that situation again. But I'm in a relationship. I'm married, to my beautiful wife. And that's one thing you learn after a minute. You do not
Mm-hmm.
put a expectation before communication. Don't expect for me to have done something if you never told me to do it.
Oh gosh, some
You
marriages
know?
are being free. I think right now we need to get you a side business. Look, just go ahead, put up, keep the Keef Keyz
Yo,
Productions, and on the other side, Keef Keyz Therapy, right? And just like they just go from one booth and then they go
I
right to
just
the
I just
couch.
try to learn from every mistake the first time, so I don't
Yeah.
ever have to go through it again. Get the principle out of it, so it applies to everything.
So you
Listen,
can reuse it and just keep going
yeah,
back to
I
what was
don't.
successful.
Yeah, but also just in the workplace, like in the music industry, especially, it's I really want for people, whoever you're working with, whether it's you or whether it's the other person, or maybe it needs to be both of you,
Mm-hmm.
to over communicate the expect. Because then but not only that, not only does the work get done and it becomes its best, you have a system of measurement now. So okay, if we add A, if we add B, if we add C, if we add D, if we add E, we can expect at this point to get Z at the end of the day.
Yeah.
We can expect this. So it tells you, so you begin a formula, you begin to know what works and what doesn't work. If you are able to communicate it, and then it teaches you, the more you do it, the more you become a better communicator, the more people you work with, it become easier and easier and easier. Like, I remember, like, growing up, I want to work for, I want to do songs with some of my idols and some big names and stuff like that I listened to growing up. But as I'm growing more in this journey, I'm learning now, like, hey, I need to become a better communicator now, because in the event, I always say this: what if God actually gave you what you prayed for? I mean, what if
Mm.
he actually gave you what you prayed for? A lot of us, we're not even ready for what, and so it's like if somebody, if one of my favorite artists or somebody were to ever call my phone and say, this is what I want, if you never communicated, you might be, you start asking for autograph and stuff, or yeah, whatever you want, and you start but it's like if you learn to communicate, it's more so, okay, so what exactly are you looking for? How does that sound? Okay, are there other musicians, are there other contributors to this project? Who else do I need to speak with? When do you need this done by? And what formats do you want this? But it's secondhand nature now, because I've asked that question so many times that it doesn't matter who ask that, but it's more so about just understanding what you're going through and the journey you're going through, trying to get the most principles out of it, learning every little bit, every little thing you have, that's going to help add up to the bigger idea and project, and who you are later in life. But you have to learn and kind of look at that stuff as you go on.
Man, this was a live class type podcast, man. This is way more than
Yeah.
just how to
Like,
run your studio, how to work with clients, man.
yeah,
Look, I'm taking notes here. I'm gonna be taking some notes and running this thing back to like really dial
I,
into what you're talking about. So I wanted to ask you this question because I
yeah,
really love your spirit, man. This is really blessing me.
sure,
I'm being
yeah,
honest
great.
with you.
Yeah.
What I would love to know now is that because you've learned, because you've grown, now my question really is kind of like what's next, like now that you kind of get that foundation, you really know something. Again, I'm being personal, I'm putting myself on the therapy couch now. One thing
Mhm.
that I do have to work on is never getting stagnant or thinking, okay, I've reached this level, things are good, okay, I just keep doing X, versus what is the next big thing, what is the thing I don't, you mentioned the ignorance of just jumping into stuff. So,
Mhm.
what is a big dream for your company or for you personally as a musician or as a producer? Like, what is the next big thing that you say, okay, this would be a challenge, something I would have to grow into?
Yeah, that definitely has changed. That definitely has changed throughout the years. Now, I think where I'm at now is I kind of want to teach others kind of what I do, how I do,
Okay.
in order so that the company can grow with less of me doing things that I can teach others on how to do, and we can affect and help more artists and kind of do more work, and kind of just transform into that. I have a team, and we do work now. We do a lot of work now for a lot of different artists, and I'm super grateful to God for that. But I really want to get to a point where we're growing, and I can bring on more producers. I can bring on more engineers. I can bring on, and make this a thing, kind of like a virtual, in a sense, almost like a virtual production house, in a sense,
Mm.
almost as if, somebody from over there, over here, over there, but we're just one big family. We're just one big team accomplishing a massive goal, because now our clientele and the people who we uh, work with are all over the place, and it's not just just a little bit of people here, there, or whatever, so that's kind of my goal. I have a lot of like other dreams and aspirations and stuff I want to do. So I love music to life. I mean, golly, I mean, I can't explain it, but I definitely understand that being successful in music, you tend to spend not that much time actually on the music.
Music.
y- You know,
Well,
you
such
spend
as best kept secret. Like,
yeah, yeah. For anybody who really wants to grow as like a producer and an engineer and stuff, it's a lot of business skills, organizational skills, understanding, patience, and it's a lot of other stuff that goes along with it. But then there's like a lot of tedious, business things. And by me being the captain, it's more so I have to focus more on the business and not in the
in the
business,
business.
So although I'm still in the business, I have to focus more out, So it would I wouldn't mind getting to a point to where I can focus more on the business and not have to focus, little in it actually, or I can actually get to that point that I said my overall dream was I can finally work with the people I want to work with,
Yeah.
because everybody else is still being serviced, but it's not necessarily me per se, the one doing it, but just by myself, but it's the team, so that's kind of my goal, my dream, where I'm working towards now, putting people in place now to kind of help me get that done. So yeah,
That's
that's what
beautiful. No, I love, again, everything you're saying really does have that overall picture. It is not a one size fits all kind of dream. It's not only, like you said, work with certain artists, get the Grammy. It's not like that is so like almost selfish and focused. And a lot of artists we see, again, so I'm using the opposite, right, to prove the point. The opposite is the artist that say, "Oh, I just need a bunch of fellow followers on
right.
Instagram. I just need to work with this person to get this big record. We need to hit this metric, hit this goal, and everything, and that equals success." When you establish from the get go of this conversation, that's not what success is about. It's
Right.
about how many people, including like your team and your family, like how does that look overall? So you like have a legacy to look back on and can say, hey, we built we built this, like you said, that virtual idea. It would
Right.
not be a one person. It's not like you sitting on top of the mountain, everybody else is down the valley. It's like a we thing. Even when you describe that goal, I love it. I wanted to grab one other thing before we start wrapping up, because I love this, could go forever.
Yeah.
Um, this is the God and Gig Show. You mentioned you're a church boy. We
Yeah.
we were all growing church musicians and stuff like that. So I just wanted to ask you, how does that really? Because I feel it all in it. So I feel like the whole conversation described it. But just want to give you a chance to like nail it directly. How has
Yeah.
your faith impacted your business, and how you've operated even outside the church as far as a musician, producer, creative?
I love this conversation because I have this conversation with a bunch of different people. Even some, like, even my church has artists in it, and I had this conversation with them as well. And it's my faith has, if it wasn't for my faith, I wouldn't be this successful
Mm,
at all. Talent is one thing, but those who really believe understand, like, there's at least, there's like a six-man off the bench, that comes, helps you sometimes, so sometimes it's like, you know b- by you having faith, and that God is looking out for you, and you have the best intentions with what you're doing. um why would not why would God stop you? Like, why would he?
mm,
That's more so of the question. I try to think from a God perspective, like, concerning a lot of things. But one of the biggest things that I can say, especially you working with like a lot of like secular artists and stuff like that, it's so funny because, like, um my mom has passed away now, but my mom was, she, the devil is a liar. My mom would have went, oh,
old
uh,
school.
oh, to the T. I mean, she put the O in old school. You know what I'm saying? So, um, but when Jesus was on earth, right? Because we talk about faith here. So Jesus
Yeah.
was on earth, right? And he was a carpenter. Was he a Jewish carpenter, or was he a carpenter?
Look out now.
I'm trying to use my words very, because of course this stuff like this opens up a lot of, and I want for people to understand what I'm saying more so what I'm not saying. One of my favorite rappers, white guy, his name is Andy Mineo.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I remember when he wasn't even signed, and I used to listen to some of his stuff. But I remember he was on an interview, and he was on a TV show, and the newscasters asked him, they were like, "Well, what do you think about when people call you a gospel rapper?" And he was like, "Well, let me ask you something." He was like, "Are y'all believers?" And they're like, "Yeah, we're believers." They're like, "Okay, cool." They're like, "So," he said, "Are you a gospel news anchor, or are you a news anchor?" And they were like, "Touche." I was like, "See, that's the thing. This world, we're so quick to classify something, and as soon as you put a label or classify anything, um, whatever you classified has to live up to the classification that you put on it.
Mm,
So as soon as you say something is this, that means you're saying it can't be that, you know. that's part of the journey that I've been on, and one of the things that I began to understand, because I've worked with a lot of different artists, a lot of different secular music, and I know of a lot of people who have done so as well. The reality of it is the real and I want for people to hear what I'm saying and what I'm not saying. The reality of it is, if we are called as a people to influence the earth, how are you going to influence the earth if you're never with them? If you're not even in the deep conversations with them, you may be the only example somebody has. When you come into my place and stuff, we got scriptures all up on the wall. You already know what it's about. I don't have to talk to you about it. You already know what it's about. We don't even you know. Matter of fact, my Wi-Fi password is John 3:16. It's so funny. Like, you get the Muslim guy in here. "Oh, what's the Wi-Fi password?" It's John
Man, you
3:16.
hit him right with it.
Yeah, hit him
Dude,
with it.
that's the best.
Yeah,
Oh,
so it's
I
yeah,
love it.
but it's the reality of it is, if God called you the salt of the earth, I mean, golly, you gotta at least be it. But my problem is this, and I'm trying not to go off on a tangent real
No,
quick,
you're
but
good.
this is
Again,
my
please.
my problem is
You're helping
this.
people.
Here's my problem, and it's straightforward. Church people expect, if you're in the church, or you're in the church world, you're a believer, and you have something going on. Say if you're a woman and you do hair, or if you're a man and you have a construction business or something like that. If that's what you do, the church world expects for you to be successful only to other church folk. Because if I can't work with people outside the church, then I can only work with people
Yeah,
inside the church. And the people inside the church still giving $1 in the offering. So how do you expect for me to become successful off of, if it's hard for you to give to the one who you said woke you up this morning, started you on your way. If it's hard for you to give to him, how much harder would it be for you to give to me? So I try to put things in a practical perspective so that
no, you're
people can
nailing it.
actually see it.
Yeah,
um and I'm not saying, and what I'm not saying is that's a license to just go do what you want and work with everybody in the world. Because the first thing is like intent. Like, I work with so many different artists and stuff, but what I'm not doing is, like, when you come work with me, is what I'm about, what I'm gonna say. I'm going to bring a certain type of word I'm going to use is influence to that situation. The problem is, if you got something that somebody else don't got, and you choose to never use it, then that's a different conversation.
yeah.
But if people always say, well, if Jesus was here, Jesus would be out in the streets. Jesus wouldn't be in the church. Fact.
Yeah,
If Jesus was still here on earth, you probably would see Jesus in the club. Fact. But by you knowing who Jesus is, you know what he's not doing in
right.
the
Well, that's
club.
the
You
big thing.
you definitely
Yeah,
know
and
what
that's the
he's
thing.
not doing.
I've always said this about that particular that line of questioning, right? And I love that we went here. Jesus would most likely be around the sinners in the club, or even to call it, just like he was with the friend of sinners, a glutton and a drunkard, right? Because they saw him
Yep.
there. The difference is, when they went to Jesus, they went to the club to see Jesus because Jesus was there. Jesus was influencing the area that he was there. They
Come on.
flocked to him where he was. They didn't go to the place where he was because that's the place to go, right? He showed up
Absolutely.
where they was, and he changed the environment of the place that he was. So just like you said, when people walk into your studio, immediately, no matter what's on their mind, they will be in that environment where faith and God and Jesus is
Yeah,
present. And they can't get away from it because they need what you have, which is the talent and the gifting and the
and
excellence.
it's not even and it's not just the gifting and the excellence too. I try to focus on the person, and
Yes. The
that
ability
helps
to,
me,
yeah,
and that
absolutely.
helps me to do my job better. But I do that on purpose. It's yeah, if something's on their mind, trust me, I don't know why in studio sessions they think that is the venting time. But God knows, but that's the opportunities. That's where, I ain't gotta quote the verse to where it came from.
No, just
But yeah, but I can tell you, weeping may, it may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. It's I can, you have those opportunities to where, if God is okay. So if so if God were to put you somewhere, it's by intention.
yep.
Okay. So if you're going to be successful, if you're going to be in a specific room, there's a reason to why God will have wanted you in that room. So don't think it's to scratch the itch of your success and where you actually want to be in life. If he wants you there, you're there with his intent, not yours. Our ways aren't his ways, thoughts, not his thoughts. So he's going to put you somewhere with his intent. The question is, you have to ask is, what is his intent? Because if you're somewhere and you just think it's based on your gifting, wrong. You have a certain influence and other than just the gifting that you have, and you don't have to be all extra holy, extra deep, extra
No,
spiritual.
that actually messes it all up.
The one, I think, who was it? Tim Tebow. A long time ago, they asked him. They said, "Well, do you go into the locker room and preach to your team members and stuff like that?" And I remember him straight face, and he said, "I believe the biggest ministry is not what you say, but it's how you live." And I think that spoke volumes to me, because when you're put in other, if you're put in other rooms where people don't believe what you believe, don't do what you do, and of course you're not going to whip out your Bible. I mean, I'm sorry, your Bible app. Of course you're not going to, of
Right.
course you're not going to whip that out. But if you are true, I'm not trying to be super deep, but if the word's written on your heart, if it's in you, then that at some point in time we should see some sort of reflection, off of you, saying like, oh, he's different.
Yeah.
So something's about you, or something's going on here, but because you're here, it didn't happen. Or I feel like, it's that's the real testimony. That's the real. So that's the stuff that I try to think about when I'm in certain environments and in certain rooms. Sometimes on certain tracks, you hear church chords like crazy, and I don't care. You know what I'm saying? It'd be a whole
Exactly.
rap song, but
Well, yeah, yeah, but they're gonna get it because it's flowing out of you. And the word that popped in my
yeah,
head is that
listen.
we hold this treasure in earthen vessels. So the power, so it's evidence. It's like we're just who we are. We're just people. We're just creators. We're doing a job. Like you said, Jesus was a carpenter for 30 years. God only gave him 3 years, but spent basically tithed his life, right?
Yeah.
Jesus tithed his life, but 30 of those years was spent, like you just said, right there in the marketplace doing excellent work. So I'm sure some of those tables ended up in some
Yo,
places outside the synagogue. Some of those
we
chairs,
don't talk about
we
that.
don't
We
talk.
don't. Jesus was a dope. He was a dope leader, changer of the world. I mean, he was that. But people not talking about the tables. He probably made some.
Some
Yo,
dope
he
tape,
Jesus probably
the most
probably
beautiful stuff, and it didn't show up in the synagogue. I guarantee you, 99% of the stuff he did not show up in the synagogue. It was for people,
facts.
right? Like, oh my gosh, okay, man, okay, we're gonna have to do a
Jesus,
we're gonna have to do a part
Jesus
two of this.
table did not go to the synagogue. I
No, no,
promise you that.
no, man. There was a whole. Okay, we can't. Yeah, we're gonna go too deep now because some of the I feel some of the Bible people will be like, does the Bible say that? Look, anyway. So most important thing, man. I love this conversation so much. All right, so we're gonna do a part two because I can tell you got so much more to share, but we gotta start wrapping it up. This is one of the questions I love to wrap up with because again, this goes to the heart of who you are. You're such an amazing brother already. I can tell this is going to be something that people are going to want to go back and listen to and watch. So tell that person that was where that is now where you were. So let's set it up. So I don't
Okay.
know what age you were, but let's say they were in the dorm room. Let's say they're in college. They're just starting to get their stuff together.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I just want you to give that like little moment of insight to them, because you were there. You didn't know all this was possible at the time, but you were like, I'm going to go get it. I'm going to figure out, I'm going to turn some headphones into microphones. I'm going to figure it out, me and my brother.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
somebody is at that same space right now, and they're not sure. They're either staring at some, they're not sure how to communicate. They're not sure how to talk. They're not sure how to kind of get that identity where they're comfortable stepping into this new role that they want, whether it's studio, artist, whatever, right? So
Yeah.
what would you tell somebody that's right at the same position that you were back then?
First thing is gonna be another cliche thing, but I get out the way. Don't give up.
Mm,
Don't give up. Just don't do it. If that's what you want, why would you give up? If that's what you want. That's number one. Number two, I want to say is teaching yourself. So the practical things, or YouTube University is the biggest university online. Make that a part of your repertoire. Find somebody who you really trust, or a group of channels that really trust, that will speak to really what you want to do. And then you treat that as if you paid them a tuition to be there. You pay attention, take notes. Take notes. There's no point of watching a video if you're not going to retain the information. Duh. I say duh because duh. So
exactly.
if you're going to watch something for educational purposes, then let it be educational. Learn from it. Right. Take notes. Seriously, take notes. It sticks. I forget the percentage. So much times more in your head if you
I know
just
it's got to
wrote
be
it
double.
down.
Yeah, double.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the other thing I would definitely say to do is I'll say this straight up. It's not the how, but it's the who, right? So sometimes, of course, like, okay, when I say it's not the how, it's the who. Somebody has already done what you wanted to do. Fact. Somebody's already where you wanted to go. Fact. Find those people and you talk to them. You ask them, because they will provide you the shortcut, which they took them 10 years, it will
Yeah.
take you 2. you know um that find that person, find them. You find them and you talk to them, and you don't bombard them, but you learn from them, but you find them and you do not stop finding them. We call that networking, but you do not stop finding them. And every single person you talk to, you do not leave without their name, their number, and their email address. So that's super practical for anybody.
Yeah.
Learn that now. Learn that now. But you learn, you get the education, you don't stop, and you find the who, not the how. So it may not be something, but it might just be someone. And that's the biggest thing that I would say. I learned that kind of later on. I wish I would have knew that way beforehand, because now I spend more time reaching out to people, talking to people. I love the podcast type platform because it gives me the opportunity to even reach out to people. It's
Yeah.
because it's the who, not the how. And you learn that more and more and more and more as you go. It's not like, hey, what snare drum do I need for this type of track? It's not that, yo, bro. It's not that, bro. It's
You're
not
trying to
that.
help them. You're
Like,
trying to help.
yo,
You're trying to
I
help
mean,
them.
it matters, but it's not that.
It,
It's the who.
oh
The who
gosh.
can actually tell you, who can you actually trust, that will guide you, that will cut the learning curve down and the time frame it takes for you to get from point A to point Z down. Who can actually do that for you? So reach out to people, everybody and their mother is online, either on Instagram and or Facebook. You find them, you DM them, you tell them how much they've impacted you, how much they impacted the industry that you're in. Do not use me or I the whole time. Do not talk about
Yes.
yourself, because it's not about you.
Yes.
All
There you
you do
go.
is reach out to them. You tell them how great they've been, a success to the community and the industry that they're in, and what would it take for them to sit down and have a conversation with you. That's how you do it, verbatim, every time, to everyone. And you will be surprised at who you connect with. how much they can help you versus you spending time trying to figure it out. So that's my practical tips. That's that right
Man,
there.
this was this was literally like almost a master class right here. I think we'll have to put this up on the, I know there's a lot of other platforms, but I'm going to start create a God and Gigs master class series where
Yeah,
this
let's
would be
do
like number one on it. Keith,
do
this
the
is
master class.
amazing, brother.
Yeah,
I cannot wait to see and hear the testimonies and the talks and the conversations and the communication that's going to come because
yeah,
somebody took your words to heart. So this is amazing. Let's make sure they can stay connected with you. So I know we go old school with some people writing this stuff down. All the links are going to be in the
for
description
sure.
underneath
Yeah,
this particular podcast and this episode. But just let them know just directly how do they keep up with you, connect with you, and learn more about you.
Keef Keyz, KeefKeyz. It's keefkeyz.com. That's my website. I'm on Instagram, Keef_Keyz. You can just find me on anything. I don't want to sound very like prideful if I were to say Google me, but if you were to actually Google me, every single thing pops up. I try to make sure everything pops up on Google.
Exactly. Hey,
So,
you do a lot of work. You just tell
I
exactly. Well,
try.
we
I
do all this
try.
work for SEO. Like, why not just tell
I,
them? Yeah,
I,
look, it's
I
work. My
try.
name
So
exactly.
yeah, yo, reach out to me. I am reachable. I am reachable. I talk. Probably won't let you waste some time, but I talk to everybody. I love people, love to talk to people, love to communicate with people. I love to network, you know what I'm saying? So I love to, and definitely for where I'm trying to be, I definitely would love it if more people reach out to me rather than me having to reach out to more people. So
Exactly. Yeah.
so
Nah,
yeah,
man.
that's where you can definitely find me. Yeah, for sure.
You've made it so clear that you are the kind of person that is absolutely where people should reach out to you because you're never doing this one way thing. This is a two-way thing where you're serving, you're helping people. Clearly, it like I said, God has really just like put you in this position so that you can be that kind of light on the hill, so that you don't have to, you can't be hid. Like I'm sorry, it's just, the people are going to come, they're going to see, and they're going to see your good work, so that they may shine, so glorify
Yeah,
God. All those again, these
for
scriptures
sure.
are real. They apply to us, and especially as you said in the creative lifestyle where we can actually like really be that influence on people. So Keith, bless you. Thank you so much for being a part of our show, man. I'm sure this is not going to be the last time, but until next time, man, God bless you and continue to see what He has for you in the future.
Thank you for having me.